We begin this time with the race for the White House and the biggest win yet for Donald Trump, a 20-point victory in Nevada. Trump has now won in the East, the South, and the West. Correspondent Tom Llamas in Las Vegas with the latest.
Thank you.
This morning, Donald Trump winning the Nevada caucuses and heading into Super Tuesday with real momentum.
We won the evangelicals. We won with young. We won with old. We won with highly educated. We won with poorly educated. I love the poorly educated.
Trump rallying his supporters late into the night.
If I grab and grab and grab, you know, I get greedy. I want money, money. Now I'm going to, I'll tell you what we're going to do, right? We get greedy, right? Now we're going to get greedy for the United States. We're going to grab and grab and grab.
And overnight, Senator Cruz thanking his supporters.
Is it the only campaign that has beaten Donald Trump, and the only campaign that can beat Donald Trump is this campaign.
Trump taking his final shots before the caucuses at Senator Cruz.
He's like a baby compared to some of the people I have to do. He is like a little baby. Soft, weak little baby by comparison. But for lying, he's the best I've ever seen. He's the best.
Cruz firing back. All day Tuesday making the case it's unclear what Trump even stands for.
And frankly, I'm not willing to gamble my daughter's future with Donald Trump. The truth of the matter is, if Donald became president, nobody knows what the heck he would do. He doesn't know what the heck he would do.
This as Senator Marco Rubio continues to win endorsements from establishment leaders, but acknowledging the field is too splintered.
Well, first of all, again, this choice here remains multi-candidate. You have Ben Carson here this week and Ted Cruz and myself. So you have a very hardcore majority of Republicans that do not want Donald Trump as the nominee. And as long as they're being divided up by 3 or 4 people, it's good for Donald. But that's not going to continue.
So I think they need to drop out then?
I think voters are going to take care of that. You already saw that.
Trump predicting a Rubio-Trump rumble could be coming.
Yeah, Rubio. Who, by the way, I've been very nice to. I've been very nice. People say, why are you so nice? Because he hasn't hit me. When he does, you will see what happens.
Tom Llamas reporting there, and joining us now, Steve Shepard, campaigns and elections editor for Politico, and Peter Morisi, economist at the Robert H. Smith School of Business at the University of Maryland. Great to have both of you with us. So Ronald Reagan gave us, it's morning again in America. Donald Trump gives us, we grab and grab and grab. The state of our politics in 2016, Steve Shepard, Donald Trump ranking up big victories in contest after contest now.
Yeah, now 3 of the first 4 states he's got the majority of the 133 delegates that have been awarded thus far. We still have a long way to go, but right now, in a 5-candidate field, the way this field is segmented thus far, Donald Trump has enough appeal across the Republican spectrum with this many candidates to continue winning. And honestly, the way South Carolina went, to me, is a signal for what Super Tuesday will be. I think he's favored in almost all of these southern states, except perhaps Texas, where Ted Cruz will be competing in his home state.
Undeniable momentum, huge momentum, one could say, heading into the biggest set of contests we've seen so far. Not that the early ones aren't big because of their prominence and the fact that they're first out of the gate, but so many states at one time. This is new for the 2016 cycle, and momentum clearly in the Trump camp.
And that momentum is important because in those states, you can't go and camp out in those states the way Ted Cruz did in Iowa, where he had basically a dorm of volunteers who lived there for months to go turn out the vote for him on the day of the caucus. You can't do that when 11 or 12 states vote on the same day, and you only have a week between the previous contest and this one. So Donald Trump, with the way he dominates the media, he has the edge. I mean, these campaigns aren't really advertising that much either in these states because there are so many, and they don't, frankly, have the money to do it. Donald Trump, though, is on every news program this morning, and that's likely to be the case for the next 6 days leading into Super Tuesday. It's difficult to see how somebody topples him.
Peter Morisi, I have followed presidential politics, I would say, pretty darn closely since the 1970s, since at least the 76 campaign. Rhetorically, Donald Trump is like no one American politics has ever seen. What do you hear when he speaks? What's at the core of his appeal?
You know, you can approach someone's message at 2 levels. One is, you know, would a Republican, do they attract evangelicals, and are they right on the Christian issues? Do they attract Joe Lunchpail? Do they want to do something about trade? all of these groups, one by one, have fallen behind Trump, even those who are highly educated and more aligned with business, because he's talking about something that's above that or below it, more like a foundation. And that is, these people fight over the direction of society. He's talking about the very fabric of American society. America has been losing at trade. It hasn't been growing. And frankly, the Democratic Party has assembled a coalition of groups who benefit from various government programs and interventions in the economy. That's why Hillary will do so well in South Carolina. While they can't articulate the message in those terms, what they're thinking is America is at risk. And when he says, I'm going to grab it all back, the Yaleys like Jeb Bush say policy matters because they're clueless. The reality is he's striking a chord. He's got the best political ear in America.
Do you see a viable establishment lane still there for someone not named Trump? And is Rubio best positioned now as candidates drop out like Chris Christie and Jeb Bush? Is there likely to be a coalescing, and is Rubio the most likely person to benefit from that?
He is the person who could most likely beat Trump, but two things. One is last night Trump's vote count was up close to 45%. So this notion that if everybody gets out of Rubio's way, that all of a sudden he's going to have 51% of the vote, just doesn't bear out. And it's also a question, with all the irregularities in Nevada, which votes the way Bolivia does, you know, how valid was that 45%? But still, the other thing is I think you have to say that Cruz is proving to be a regional candidate. Iowa was an anomaly. He is really a southern candidate, and he's probably, along with Christie, two of the most selfish people on the planet, because he's depriving Rubio of a one-on-one race with Trump. If he got out of the way, then the others would pretty well fall by the wayside. As Rubio's numbers rose, then you'd have to start thinking, do I really want to vote for Sanders? Do I really want to vote for Kasich? Then you'd have a one-on-one race, and that would be interesting.
And that's what could be coming. We'll see.
It could be, but, you know, for now, Ted Cruz, he is in second place in this race. He has gotten the second most votes thus far. He has more votes, even though Marco Rubio has finished second in the past two states. Ted Cruz has more votes than Marco Rubio thus far in the process, and his states are coming. You mentioned he's a regional candidate. Well, his region is coming next Tuesday. So for him, the incentive to drop out now doesn't really exist.
Also,
now, if we're here a week from now and Donald Trump runs the table in the South and Ted Cruz is in second place in all those states, even if he's still beating Marco Rubio, his opportunity has passed.
Whenever you get close to these guys, whether it's Kasich or Cruz, you realize they're egomaniacs. You know, if you criticize them in the slightest way, especially if I do it, right? When I bump into them at Fox, you know, if I bump into a candidate I've criticized, I mean, they don't even want to talk to me because how dare I, a professor, I mean, they are egomaniacs. But of all the egomaniacs, Trump is not the supreme egomaniac. It's Cruz.
Making him less likely to...
Right. That's the problem. Cruz is the man, just like on the Senate floor with his filibusters, he is the man that keeps the Republican Party from unifying. He is really the poison that will make Hillary Clinton president.
That's quite a prediction.
You know, I don't know. I wonder what will happen if, as I sort of expect at this point, Donald Trump wins all of the southern states with the exception potentially of Texas, whether that is enough for Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, will, unlike Marco Rubio, will go back to the Senate. He has another 2 years left on his term in the Senate. Whether he'll go back and kind of play ball with this idea of trying to stop Donald Trump, or whether he will take this to the end, knowing that Republicans will be seeking anybody to stop Trump. And if Marco Rubio loses Florida on March 15th, then maybe Ted Cruz is the last man standing if he sticks around.
The thing is, at that point, Trump will likely be the person with a majority of delegates. In order for it to stop Trump, you have to have a single candidate early enough to do it, and for that person to raise the money. And it was getting really pretty late in the process. It doesn't seem that way. You see, the reason I like Rubio so much as a candidate, not necessarily as someone I want in the White House, is that with Rubio, all of Hillary Clinton's negatives, which are many, become relevant. With Trump, she's got negatives, he's got negatives, hold your nose, go to Britain, or just don't vote that day. You know, I mean, come on.
This cycle has given, I want you to talk about what you've written in the last couple days, in the last day or so. this cycle has brought us two very unusual candidates. A billionaire, loudmouth, kind of brash, over-the-top guy who kind of, I think, everyone, including Donald Trump, would acknowledge is making it up as he goes along. I think his decision to get into the race was made as he stood at that podium the day he announced. I don't think it was even in his mind, and that's 100% to do it when he came down that golden gilded escalator, right? So we have the brash, sort of obnoxious in terms of who he insults and his rhetoric and his tone.
Don't you say obnoxious? He's from New York like me.
I'm from New Jersey. Listen, it's how we roll. But this is the guy, and it's part of the appeal. I'm not knocking the guy. It's part of the in-your-face style, the take the country back. That's all baked into the appeal. And you have a socialist who has been unwilling to live under the banner of the party whose nomination he is now seeking. And in terms of their appeal, Peter Morisi, you see similarities.
Oh, I do. At some point, the left and the right come full circle and meet in the bottom. Okay, one of them is health care. For example, Obamacare is a bust, but Bushcare was no better. So the only way out then is what Sanders is proposing, and guess what? Trump is endorsing. But what you've got here is a lot of people who understand that America is losing because they are losing. Their incomes are falling, the opportunities for their children are diminished, they're living in the attic, they can't buy a home, all that. What it is Sanders seems to appeal more often to the very young within the Democratic Party because the older Democrats are all entitlements out. I mean, they basically have their easy Social Security disability. The blacks have their minority set-asides, affirmative actions, and government jobs, and so forth. They've cobbled together a very nice coalition of people 40-plus. There was a great article this morning in the Wall Street Journal about older women in the workforce, and one of the things it pointed out was that older people have suffered much less from the Great Recession than young people. They appeal to Sanders. On the other extreme, the older people that have been cashiered out, they like Trump. So it's a lousy economy, losing at foreign policy, and these things appeal.
And I think another common thread between Sanders and Trump is the extent to which the system is rigged in favor of the deep-pocketed people who contribute to the candidates' campaigns.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no question that some of these economic things that Professor Morisi is saying bear out in our politics. You know, if you feel like the country is losing, if you feel like you're falling behind and you're not getting the answers from Washington, you feel like Washington is stacked against you. That's playing out in two ways. The people who want the government to do more to enforce the kind of fairness that they're looking for, and those people are backing Bernie Sanders, and some of the people who want maybe the government to get out of some of these things and are looking for someone who has the business experience that Donald Trump claims to have.
The reason the establishment is in trouble, though, is that with a shrinking pie, the government can't buy off enough people. Hillary may get elected and continue the regime, but the reality is she's the Metternich of our time, a return to the old regime. She can't solve the problems of a majority of people because with a shrinking pie, tellingly, Rubio and Clinton, they are now the establishment candidates. Guess who's getting a lot of money from Wall Street all of a sudden? Rubio. Goldman Sachs is hedging its bets beautifully. J.P. Morgan, they're buying them both off.
And candidates are telling pollsters in contest after contest with increasing number that anger at Washington is at a rage level.
I mean, they deserve to be angry. The only difference between the Clinton and Bush Treasury Department is the 5th floor and the 6th floor at Goldman Sachs. They have red shirts there and blue shirts, and they send the appropriate group of people to rig the system. You know, look at the way they handled the financial crisis. It was so different than 30 years before in terms of how they handled the savings and loan crisis and how they handled the mortgage crisis during the Depression.
To be continued. Steve Shepard, campaigns and elections editor for Politico. Economist Peter Morisi teaches at the Smith School of Business at the University of Maryland. Thank you both for coming in. Good to have you here as always. When we return, streetcar finally ready to roll in the district.